I think the car and I both deserve a nice cool down after that run. We just went up Piuma Road. We're on the David M. Brown overlooking Malibu Creek State Park. So you might be asking, what am I doing out here? As many of my viewers may know, I go to McPherson College of Automotive Restoration, and a lot of the students in that program end up doing internships with shops and auction companies and private collections around the country during the summer, and then come back to the school in the fall. And that's the case here. I'm an archives intern with Gooding & Company here in Santa Monica and Van Nuys, and a lot of it is preparing, as you may guess, for the Pebble Beach auctions in early August. So I'm having a lot of fun. I really love the history of cars, and so working in the archives is a lot of fun. And being around the deals going on and cars coming in, and just getting a lot of exposure to different pre-war French and late model supercars, 90s kind of Radwood supercars, and of course post-war sports and touring. So I'm really loving it. And meanwhile, while I'm out here, attended the LA Toy and Lit Meet in March and met a great new friend named Thomas who had this 1972 911T. So this car was produced in the second to last year of the long hood style 911, and it's unique because 72 was the only year when all 911s were produced with an oil door on the side, and the T was produced with mechanical fuel injection. The year before, it was a 2.2 with carbs. The year after, a 2.4 with CIS. But for 72, they had a 2.4 with mechanical injection. So I wanted to talk about, I've been here, I started work on the 31st of June. Sorry, started work on the 31st of May, and it's now the 1st of July. It's 4th of July weekend. And I wanted to talk about what it's like to daily drive a vintage sports car or a vintage car in general in LA, what it's like driving it around, and the experiences of driving in the hills and the experiences of driving in traffic. And then also kind of some tips and some things you could order on Amazon and other places really cheaply that will help you out a lot in your day-to-day travels in an old car. So this just doesn't just apply to the LA area, it could apply to any city or small town. So you'll notice this doesn't exactly look like your average 911T. It's got RS flares, which were fitted sometime aftermarket. I'm still trying to track down the early history of this car. And therefore it's got 16-inch SC era Fuchs, a little bit wider all around. And another interesting thing, you could have ordered a 1972 911T with this trim here and this rocker trim here, which is called S Deco trim. Though this model was not ordered, this particular chassis was not ordered that way, it's been converted to that at some point. This chassis was ordered with two very interesting options. It was factory spec silver black. Here's a brigade of Porsches and BMWs driving by. And that's a separate subject. The car culture out here and the enthusiasm is great. So it was optioned with Recaro sport seats and a factory electric sunroof. Otherwise, it's largely stock. The engine is totally stock with individual intake trumpets and timed injection. It has a sport muffler, but that's about it, and I love it. So let's talk about some things you'll need on the daily, specifically with a Porsche, but a lot of these things can apply to any old car. A quart of oil. You want to check the oil pretty often, at least every week. And especially in Porsches, they tend to burn a little bit of oil over time. It's what they do. They're water cooled, but just as much they're oil cooled. So keep a quart of oil. Along with that, you'll want a fresh terry cloth. Along with that, you'll want a fresh terry cloth. You can keep paper towels as well, but keeping just a fresh terry cloth and using it once or twice and then using it for something else is a lot better than having paper towels, which could get dirty, and then you've got this big roll, and this is just a nice tactile thing to hold. Also for me, in my current situation, I'm renting a place for the summer, so I don't have any sort of wash bay or hose at all. So what I've been doing is buying fresh microfibers, and then once a week or so, and it desperately needs it, going and washing the car at a pay and spray. And keep a couple fresh microfibers, wipe the whole thing down. You can also get some drying towels which are like this on one side and shorter haired on the other side, and those are great for the glass as well. But your generic AutoZone towels will work perfectly fine. Now, whether you're daily driving an old car or driving a car on the weekend, what have you, this is a must. Can't live without it. Fire extinguisher. If you have one, you'll never need it. If you don't have one, you'll be caught without it and you'll feel like an idiot and your car will burn to the ground. Not really, but it could. So great to have a fire extinguisher. You can find them cheap on Amazon and they are compact. There's also different halon ones and all kinds of different technologies out there that are well tested. The final item, and I learned this the hard way, that you want is a micro jump box. It's good for 1 or 2 jumps. If you're really having trouble starting and it's not getting fuel or something, you really want an actual jump box that'll start it 10 times in a row. But when you're in a pinch, and I was one day down, parked in Santa Monica, I had just gotten a parking ticket. It wasn't exactly my day, and then it wouldn't start. And luckily, the guy getting in his Jeep in front of me, who struck up a conversation about vintage cars, happened to have one of these in his trunk. It saved my butt that day, and I ordered one on Amazon that night. So these are all things you'll want. So driving in this area, people talk about LA traffic, and it certainly exists. And I'm from DC, so I'm no stranger to traffic, but it's worth it. There's beautiful roads. You'll have the drives of your life out here. And another thing aside from the driving is you go to an area like Malibu Kitchen or the different places where Cars and Coffee happen. There's a monthly one at I'm not thinking of it now, but the observatory, Griffith Observatory. And you meet different people there and you start to realize that it's a huge city, but as far as the car community, it's a small group. And everyone's super nice and happy to be here and enthusiastic about learning from each other and helping you to learn things. And people are just super friendly. I met a couple friends the first weekend I was here actually, and we started talking over old cars, and we've done drives every Saturday since. The traffic can be a pain, but you also start to realize that a stick shift in traffic is not too bad, and it keeps you on your toes, literally and figuratively. So that's been an interesting experience. And time of day is important, of course. Living in the valley right now, so time of day to travel places and deciding if you want to drive when it's a hot time of day on a weekend versus right now, it's cool. I could put a sweater on, fantastic. So I've really enjoyed that. I was definitely nervous about spending a month, 3 months on the West Coast. I'd probably spent the most time there was a little over a week going to Monterey Car Week. So it's been quite an experience. And the life lesson in this has been, go for it. And we're gonna go to Malibu Kitchen every weekend, create some car content there, and go for some drives with some friends, and see what we can find on the adventure. Here's the heart of the beast, as it were. A magnesium-cased, aluminum-headed glory of German engineering. I had been around some timed injection cars working for the Revs Institute, and in high school worked on some 72 era T's, E's, and S's, and earlier, of course. And I had never driven one, I had never really ridden in one, and to really fully experience mechanical injection and the induction noises and the sheer power curve and everything like that, it wasn't a meet your heroes, a don't meet your heroes experience. You know, people talk about different cars and driving experiences and say, oh, you shouldn't worship those for years because you may go experience it and it might not be all that great. And that was my initial fear a little bit, was, is the mechanical injection going to be a ton of hype and it's going to drive just like a carbureted or CIS 911, which, by the way, wouldn't be a bad thing at all. But I was blown away. It's really just a visceral sounding and feeling acceleration, and it's a unique setup because it was the first year of the 915 transmission and it has a magnesium case, so it's very light feeling. But then with the RS flares and wider wheels, it really has great traction in corners. So that's been a really interesting car to drive. It's got Bilstein sport shocks, and I've driven a black as well, 911 SC with Bilsteins, and it was kind of a similarly set up car. It had slightly wider wheels than stock. That particular car had B&B headers and sport muffler and Bilstein sports. So it's kind of a fun experience to compare this one back and forth with that, both with 915 transmissions, both I think with shift kits. This is definitely tighter than stock. I'm not sure if it's a Wevo or whatnot. And both kind of had the same feel to them, and yet they drove so differently. An SC has a smaller, thicker diameter wheel, of course has aluminum engine and trans, and so they've been two unique experiences. And well, it's time to drive it back down the hill and go grab some dinner. See you next time.